And we also introduced recently a more useful view for market participants that can choose a platform based on where the platform is active. Basically, you can filter on where the platform has active market participants in which European wholesale energy market. And now, having had explained how we collect the data and the background information you can refer to, I will go on directly to showing you the access point looks like. Just give me a second. And I will start. So my main starting point is the ACER website so that you can see how to get there from the main website. So if you click on REMIT and then REMIT portal, you go to ARIS applications and inside information access point. You would have to go through a short CAPTCHA, which would prove that you are not a robot. This is done to protect our website from malicious actors. And then after going through the disclaimers, which are quite important, and I will try to go through them with you now by showing you the data, then you can access the actual data. I saw a lot of REMIT experts joining the call. So for those of you who have worked with inside information, I would like to ask you to bear with me for a second, because I would like to gravely oversimplify the concept of REMIT inside information for the benefit of other participants to this call that have not worked with REMIT inside information so far, simply because we are aware of a lot of interest coming from policy analysts or researchers on the operation of EU energy assets that would actually find this data very beneficial. So what REMIT does, the regulation that we are talking about, it obliges market participants to disclose any information on assets that they are responsible for, any information that may give them unfair advantage in trading. That's basically the background of these informations. So what this means in practice is, if you are a market participant and you're responsible for an asset that is large enough to impact energy prices in cases when the asset and its capacity are not available, then you would need to disclose this information to the public before you engage in any sort of trading on a wholesale energy market and before you change your trading strategy based on this knowledge that is only available to you currently. Now, here, something I would like to stress very, very much is that as a market participant, you would not go to this access point. As a market participant, you would still go to the platform of choice, one of these 22 platforms that we already showed you, and you would publish this message there. You would not go to the access point to do that directly, since the access point does not have such functionalities. So you would go to the platform of your choice, and what you would need to do is you would need to identify yourself as a market participant. You would need to identify the asset that you're talking about, the asset whose availability is affected by the event you want to disclose. You would need to specify whether this asset is a production, transmission, consumption, or any other type of asset. And then if it's a production asset, what fuel type it uses. You would have to specify also your best estimate of when the event will occur, how long it will last. And here, the access point shows you in the event start and event stop. Sometimes it shows you a flag. The flag means, and here is the legend, the flag means that sometimes the capacity throughout the event is not constant for electricity messages. And in those cases, by publishing one message to the public, you can disclose varying capacity levels. And if this is the case, then on the access point, you can see the capacity shown under these flags. And if you want to see the capacity, the varying capacity, you can then click on the details. You can find all the details of the message in this detail tab, and if you export the data, which I will get to in a second. So here you have, for each interval within this duration, the varying unavailable and available capacity. And they're all marked with the same label so that you can link the information together. And then just to give you an overview of the different types of messages that you can find here, you have electricity facilities in the first page, and then you have gas facilities in the second page, and other market information is any type of inside information basically that doesn't fit into the first two formats, electricity or gas, but is still considered inside information. Now, as I told you, market participants would not go directly to the access point to share their inside information. But what our access point would be very beneficial is if you are a compliance officer of, let's say, a local exchange where you know these market participants are trading. So for these people, it's quite useful actually to go to the access point and check for a certain market participant or a certain day where they're interested in a certain unavailability that occurred. They can filter and check whether the market participants trading on their exchange, let's say, have disclosed the inside information before they placed any orders on the market. And in terms of the functionalities of the access point, you can download the current result of the filtering, which I can briefly show you how the Excel looks like. It's currently in Excel format, and hopefully with future updates of the platform, we will move on to other formats as well. So we cater to any sort of analysis. And you can see all the messages here in a format that you can easily work with. Just to say that for the download of the filtered information, you have a limitation of 1,000 rows or 1,000 UMMs, depends on the structure of the message. And to go around this limitation, which is more technical, there are other options that you can use. You can either export the daily information, so the latest UMM date which was loaded, and you can see the latest date which is indicated here. Or you can search for a selected date, and then you would have an export available for this date, which is not restricted by the 1,000 rows limitation. And this is all from the demonstration so far. We can take a look at what questions have been posed. Back to you, Karina.
Yes. Just testing if you can hear me. Yes, indeed. Lema. Little bit of a time lag. So yes, let's go to some of the questions. A very mixed bunch, let's say, but I will relay maybe the more general ones and also the ones related to what we're presenting, the access points. So general policy questions may be better addressed to the Commission. I would say I would leave there. And also the individual questions, why my data, I've been looking for it. Just to let you know that the Slido page will be open for a while. So even the questions we won't answer today because maybe it's a specific question and not for general interest, we will follow up on this. So don't be afraid that we lose this. So maybe on the more specific question related to the access point, one question is, do we plan or is there an API? So I think that one, tick.
This is a very good question because we have planned to elaborate on the export functionalities, as I said, in a future release of the access point. So we are looking into APIs that we can implement on the data to make it easier to extract the needed data. Yeah.
Okay, it easy. And another question, maybe also not technical, I'm not sure we can answer it right away, but there's a question if VPN would somehow block the access. I would assume no, right? So if there's an issue, it could be something else. Again, happy to follow up, let's say on the Q&A. And another question was related to the 2-day delay. So are we planning to keep this 2-day delay? Yeah, or will that change eventually?
That's also a very good question. The 2-day delay is a purposefully chosen delay, since it ensures that the data will be complete by the time we publish it to the access point, to the extent possible. That's the first reason. And the second reason is market players would still be encouraged to go to local platforms and to the platforms of choice when they want to look at real-time inside information published.
Okay. And maybe related, I don't know if it's answered to this, but from a market participant's view, if I disclose inside information on platform on day X, when would it be visible on the access point?
It would be two days later on day X+2.
Okay, just scrolling a little bit through some of the questions. Yeah, there's a sort of download relating to the time intervals in terms of the from and to, but that is possible right now, right? To have time intervals.
Exactly, the intervals are in the box that I showed. So each interval is labeled with a number. So interval 0, interval 1, interval 2, so that you can link the relevant capacities to the interval reported.
Then I think this one, yeah, I guess is related in terms of the delay on the access point, the 2 days. I think that we more or less covered. Okay, and there's also already questions coming in on the reference center, so that is good, but that's I take a little bit of time. Maybe another question, I think that does relate to the access point. Any plans to include Northern Ireland market participants on the platform? What's the sort of scope of the access point? Maybe you just reiterate that a little bit.
The scope is any inside information that is disclosed on the REMIT. So this depends on the REMIT scope, no? We are publishing what is being disclosed on these platforms.
Okay. So just see if you're missing anything that seems more specific on the access point. The next release, maybe that we sort of covered, but more indirectly, when a sort of next release of the access point is planned. I mean, like we mentioned, we're continuously aiming to improve. So if you could give us a little bit of an insight.
Sure. We are currently working on improving the functionality of the current access point so that we ensure that it works properly. And then we are also looking into further improvements in the next iteration, which would likely be in the following years, likely not to be this year. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's one question probably relates to both the access point or reference center, whether we would integrate ANSI price data to this portal. I would say for the access point, surely not, right? Yeah, and the reference center, I think we'll hear a bit more about the scope in a minute. Any more questions, Daisy, that we need to address from this on the access point? There's the filtering, maybe the filtering question that also could be of interest. The time intervals that one can filter, let's say. I think somebody was trying to download the 1st of January 24 until the 31st of December 24. Maybe just to clarify that filtering.
Yes, indeed. This would be a nice improvement. Thank you for the suggestion.
Okay, just giving this one more scroll. And then for the I mean, more technical questions again. Will this be recorded? Yes, and also to share the code of the Slido, just relaying this message to our comms team if we can do that, but the links should be in the chat. Okay, I would say so far, thank you very much for your questions. As I said, on the more specific questions, I think somebody else asked for minutes, for example. We are very more than happy to get back to you in writing. For sure, not a problem. Of course, your questions will not be overlooked. Also, if we overlooked something now scrolling through the Slido, our experts, they're standing by to answer these questions in the course of today and maybe tomorrow. Okay, I think with this, I would conclude a little bit ahead of time, maybe the Q&A session on the access point, but in a way that is in a way gives us more time to talk a little bit about the reference center, which in terms of the actual, let's say, data and the processing of the data is a little bit more complex, let's say, because the access point gives you access to the inside information collected through platforms, whereas with the REMIT data reference center, there was actually some aggregation, anonymization, etc. So there was actual data work involved. If you've seen the data catalog, you've seen that it's quite complex. So we will use the remainder of the webinar to try and show you a little bit, explain you what this datasets means. We have a few examples how to interpret. And with this, I would suggest that Mano, you take control of the slides if you don't already have so, and that we move on with our presentation on the REMIT Data Reference Center.
Yes, thank you, Karina. Well, first of all, I am Manuel Asin Dueso. I'm policy officer here at ACER in the MIT department. So we are entering now the second block of the agenda, so the REMIT Data Reference Center. So first of all, what is the REMIT Data Reference Center? So as Karina was introducing, it's a platform or it's a group of datasets that we made available in the application chest that many of you might know already. So this comes from the Article 12 of REMIT that says that ACER shall develop this center. And on 8th of May, we made it live. So these datasets are publicly available in the portal. So we are starting with 9 datasets, 8 about trading insights and 1 about market participants, what we call MP categorization. And the scope is, well, different commodities markets, of course, but we are starting with these 9 datasets for the period, data period of January 25 to March 25. And we plan to do quarterly updates. So in a quarterly basis, we will be increasing the data that they contain. And also we will see that I mention all the time the beta versions, meaning that we are starting with these datasets that include these columns and measures, but we are already thinking how to develop it, and we hope to provide more and more things. So for us, I think it's a milestone because it's the first time REMIT data is made available in a public way. It's not about statistics of data collection as we used to publish in other reports, but it's the REMIT data itself in the form of datasets that are made available in an harmonized format. So we believe this is very, very useful for analysts, researchers, even policymakers. So let's go to the data center itself. Now I will stop sharing the presentation and will share my own screen and will show you in live what the REMIT Data Reference Center is. So for the ones that are familiar already with AEGIS portal or with CHEST, I guess you know the AEGIS portal, but if not, let's start from the ACER website. So the REMIT Data Reference Center is accessible from the ACER website in the REMIT section, and then in this new subsection of market transparency. Here we are in the main Data Reference Center webpage, where you can find the links to CHEST and the AEGIS platform that brings you to CHEST. I would mention here, I would highlight that we have in this document section the catalog, which we will see later more in depth. But I would say that it's the key document to understand the content of the REMIT Data Reference Center. So for now, let's go to CHEST. So where to find the Data Reference Center here in CHEST. And if you have experience with CHEST, you know that we used to have, well, we still have the market monitoring reports data here. So the data built that were used to build the figures. But now we have this new box here, the REMIT Data Reference Center. And here we have the list of the 9 datasets that I was mentioning by name, with the source of the data and the identifier. So now we will see one example, for example, intraday electricity. So when we go into one of the datasets here, we will have a brief page with some information like the name, the source. So this dataset would show data or has been produced with data from reported via table 1 of REMIT data, the REMIT framework, and it's produced with the traits of this table. They have an identifier, so this is a unique code that each dataset has. So this is to help users, for example, searching for them. So if I go to the search bar and I put RC IL, I will find the electricity ones, and G, I would find the 3 that are about natural gas. So these identifiers, you have the detailed description of each dataset and with their identifier and more information in the catalog. That my colleague Shiva will explain later. So here you also have a comment, so a description of the dataset and the link to the catalog again here. And in this case also, since it comes from REMIT data, a link to the transaction reporting manual, because it's relevant to understand how these data are reported. Important from CHEST is that data can be displayed. So when you access a dataset, you can filter here some values in these filters and also choose which columns to display and to export. So this way, instead of going directly and downloading the whole thing, you can play a little bit, see how the data will look, and then click on download, either the filtered data or the whole data. And it accepts two formats to download, so in CSV or in Excel. So in this case, I would do just an example, download as CSV, and I would download the whole data out of curiosity, let's say. And now I would have here the dataset with code RCIL0001, which was intraday trading on OMPs, if I'm not wrong. So this is the CSV file. Now I'm visualizing it in Excel, but it's CSV format. So this would be the dataset that we have downloaded. To understand better these columns, the aggregations, the measures, we have, as I said, the catalog, and that's what we will now check. So I will now stop sharing my screen, go back to the slides, and I will introduce the next part, which is the description of the data catalog. Let's see if I have the slides back. Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, other beneficial readings for understanding the data reference center are the transaction reporting user manual. So most of the data sets come from REMIT data. So understanding how these data are reported to ACER is also, of course, beneficial to understand many columns or values in the columns. And then the REMIT quarterly can give you a view of the general REMIT data world. So is it this first document, the catalog, that now we will focus on? So now my colleague Jiva will go in details on the datasets and the catalog. Jiva, all yours. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Manuel. So good afternoon also from my side. My name is Jiva Mitar, and actually together with Manuel and the other colleagues in the Data Excellence cluster in the MIT, basically I was the one preparing the content of REMIT Data Reference Center. I mean, now the next second half of this presentation will be quite technical. So, I mean, I hope you have your coffee ready and that you will be able to have you will be able to keep your attention high. But okay, now let's start with the first slide. This one is still rather simple. Actually, 1 year ago, when we got a task, okay, now we, the agency got a task, we need to start sharing REMIT information. Part of me, I would say, considering how many years I work with REMIT data, I was super happy because, okay, amazing, I can share my passion for this REMIT data also with the world, But on the other hand, I was like, oh my gosh, we need to share these gazillions of information, but we need to make it in a way that, the users can still make sense of it. And so I don't know how many of you are familiar with the REMIT world, but in the REMIT world, we are basically collecting information related to trading of supply contracts, trading of transportation capacities, and fundamental information. And of course, to publish all of this in one go, we said, okay, this would probably be a bit overwhelming for us as well for the users of the data. And that's why we said, okay, let's first focus only on the trading of supply contracts. And these are the things that you see in blue, basically on the left side of the slide. We focused, okay, let's have a look at the trades that are done on brokers, both whether they are cleared or not. Let's have a look on the trades with supply contracts that are done on exchanges. Let's have a look also for the supply contracts trading that is done bilaterally, but not non-standard contract frameworks. That's a bit out of scope for the time being, but really let's look at the executions of those non-standard contract frameworks, or in case, some bilateral trades were done individually. And then once we had the scope, okay, we focus on trades. We said, okay, what's the best approach? What should we focus on? On one hand, it was clear we want to answer some kind of questions, which kind of contracts are the most traded? Where does the most of the trading takes place? So natural choice was for sure, okay, let's focus in one way, from one approach, let's focus on which contracts are being traded. And that approach we called trading insights approach. And then the second approach that we took was like, okay, but for probably someone would be interested, how are the MPs approaching the market? Are they choosing to trade only electricity? Are they choosing to trade gas? Are they actually active across many markets, or they're more present locally? And for this reason, we chose, we basically created another data set which focused on the market participants who are trading, and that data set we call market participant categorization. And now in the following slides, I will actually just go through each of these kind of approaches into greater detail, also with some examples. Okay, first, as I said, first we made we looked at all the trades and we said, okay, one alternative will be, let's publish all million of them. But of course, this would be too much. We would end up revealing confidential information. So we said, let's make the contract kind of the center of our attention. And we were approaching this, question, what is a contract? What defines a contract? Which fields do we need to have to decide to see, okay, this is a contract, but at the same time that we are not going into the really nitty-gritty details, ending up in revealing way too much information. And then basically we were asking, okay, what defines a contract? For sure, it's defined by the physical characteristics. So what is traded? Are we trading electricity or gas? Are we trading, and whatever is being delivered or traded, is it for delivery in Spain? Is it for delivery in Germany? So this is the second bullet. So we for sure had a look at the delivery pointer zone. And then we had a look at also a delivery profile, Is this a monthly contract that we are talking about, or is it a intraday contract delivering for the 15 minutes interval? And then once we said, okay, these are the physical characteristics of the contract, what else defines a contract? And we said, okay, probably where it's traded. Okay, so probably the same contract, it's slightly different if you trade it bilaterally, or that if it's traded on exchange, or if it's traded on broker. And it's a bit of a different product if even if in a way the electricity underlying or gas underlying is more or less the same, it's different if you buy a future contract compared to swap or compared to spread. And also it's a bit different, the market segment, okay, some of the markets are on forward markets, or some are like in the intraday or day ahead. So all these elements define the contract. Of course, because these are not not all of these contracts that we kind of imagined are actual tradable products. That's why we call them consolidated contracts. I call it a good enough contract. When a user reads this, more or less understands what was being traded. And then here, the last bubble that you see, it's activity bubble, tells you, are the measures that we assign to this. Basically, we try to then reply the questions. Okay, once you have the contract, how many market participants traded this contract, or how many transactions were done with this contract? And here, these two measures are relevant now, but it's a good baseline for the future. We can easily bring in the additional measures like, okay, how much volume was traded, or what was the price, or I don't know, when we will bring orders in, what's the order to trade ratio, or things like this. But basically, this is a good starting point, saying, okay, this is our baseline contract approach, and then we can build on it. Now, I'm still talking about concepts and everything, and I hope you're able to follow, but let's have a look at the first example, which will be hopefully make it a bit easier to know, okay, what is now this consolidated contract? So, and by the way, these examples are also in the catalog. So we deliberately are using the same examples so that it's easier for you also to follow if you read the catalog later on. But let's imagine that you downloaded electricity data for the forward markets, and then you see the first line. The first line is this, okay, is this one that is here presented in a column. So here, as a user, you can easily interpret this. Okay, I'm looking at the transactions that were traded in the 8th week of year 2025. This means towards the end of February. Okay, what am I looking further on? I'm looking at buying transactions. So basically somebody was willing to buy some product. And now then if I look at the bottom columns, I see, okay, basically somebody wanted to purchase electricity. The electricity was for the delivery in the Italian zone, so in Italy. And this was in the forward market segment. So meaning that this electricity, even if it's traded today, it will not be delivered for at least more than 3 days in advance. So, and then the contract type is F, meaning that it's a future or forward. Now here you will see you have all these abbreviations F, Q, and things like this. So please go to the data catalog completely in the end. Annexes explains what each of those basically letters mean. I will not go into big details now, but basically for the purpose of this presentation, please know F means futures or a forward type of contract. And then we know that this future or a forward traded contract was traded on basically brokers and then decided to be brought for clearing on exchange. So this is an important information. And then we also have some information when does this contract delivers. We see, okay, period length is Q, meaning that it's a quarterly contract. And the relative period is Q+2, or basically delivery start is July 2025. This can actually tell us, okay, this is actually a contract for the Q3 of the year 2025. Because it's traded in February, it's actually traded for the two quarters in ahead, two quarters ahead. This is what the information on the slide is telling us, or in the data set. Then the last information that we have, which is contract specific, is okay, we are talking about a base load contract. This BL means. This means that the quantity that will be delivered will be constant throughout the delivery period. And so it's in a way a most basic quarterly contract. And now, like, what are the two measures which we have here is, okay, there are 248 buy transactions done with this contract, done by 36 market participants. Okay, this can already tell you something. You know, it would probably be different if it would be done by 70 or if it would be done by 250 market participants. But basically with these two metrics, you already have some insights, how much transactions were done and how many market participants were active, were doing those transactions. And you know, this is only one line, but of course you can then compare this with bringing in another line. You can say, okay, I have here Italian market. Can I find the contract with the same specificities, but the one that is, I don't know, relevant for German zone? Or can I find a sell side of the same transaction? So for example, here we saw these are buying transactions. Can we find selling transactions? And this is on my next slide, actually. Here, I mean, it's an example for Germany, but I'm actually here, I found two basically lines which are presenting buy and sell side of trading. Now, you know, why am I pointing out this buy and sell side is because we often are talking about the concept of trades and transactions in the REMIT world. And it's a bit of a, I mean, it's an important nomenclature distinction in a way, because in REMIT world, every trade is reported twice. So once as a buy side and once as a sell side. I mean, for the markets where it makes sense, especially, you know, for example, for auctions. So okay, you will have, you can have one seller only and 10 buyers or vice versa. But for example, on markets where it actually makes sense that, you know, the same trade is actually, it has two sides. In REMIT, we need to have it twice, one for a buy side, one for a sell side. And because we didn't want to create an information loss for the end user, we actually kept this distinction also in the REMIT data reference center. So what does this mean for you as a user of the data? It's actually, if you're interested, you know, to compare the sites, it's best that you actually find the contracts which has actually the same specificities. So in this concrete case, we are looking at the contracts traded in the week 8 of 2025. So again, end February. But this time we are looking for the delivery of electricity in Germany, again on the forward market. This time traded on broker purely, so not cleared at all. And again, it's the Q3 2025 contract. So basically quarterly contract starting to deliver in July. But this time it's not a base load contract, it's a peak load contract, as you can see from PL here. Peak load, it just means that it delivers in the peak time, so usually from 8 to 8. And then what you can see here is actually that you have on the sell side, you have 21 transactions, and on the buy side, you have 18 transactions. And okay, on one hand, in the sell side, you have 9 active participants entering the market. On the buy side, you have also 9 active market participants entering the market. Now, what are the conclusions that we can make? Actually, what we can say here is that, okay, altogether, there were probably 21 transactions. We are probably still missing 3 transactions, meaning that, market participants haven't reported them yet. But it could be also okay that we could have 22 or 23 transactions. We cannot make sure that we have quite a good completeness of the data, but this is difficult to judge for this specific data set, data example. And then when we come to active participants, what we can say for sure is at least 9 market participants are buying and selling this this contract that delivers electricity in Germany. But it could also be that it's 18, because here it's difficult to say, because maybe, the one who are buying are exactly the same one as those who are selling. This would be a bit weird, but maybe, one who is buying is also selling. So probably the realistic number is that between 9 and 18 market participants are involved in trading these products. Yeah, so this is how you can actually make a cross, kind of a comparison of one line with another line of the information. Now, on the next slide, I will basically show a bit, how to say, I call it a bit weird data line. And I think this it's important for us to show this weird data line for you so that it will be easier for you to interpret it. So some of you are maybe already immediately pointing it out. Okay, what is delivery pointer zone EU? Yeah, okay. We don't yet have an EU zone, but for the purpose of kind of simplification, we created it. In a sense, why we are doing it. So, as I explained, we have millions of information of the trades, and we are grouping these trades based on something that we call consolidated contract. But even when we group these trades and saying, okay, these trades belong together because they are done with more or less the same contract, what does happen is that, on some markets in some week, only 2 transactions are done, or just 3 transactions, or even if there are 10 transactions, actually it's only 2 MPs trading with each other, or 3. So the risk here was, okay, if we show that information, we may end up revealing too much. So the solution was to actually remove or simplify some of our variables and aggregate on less granular level. We understand that this results in information loss, and that, it will probably not give you much information, but at the same time, already this is an information in itself. So I think that if you would choose a specific week, like here we did week 8 of 2025, it's actually quite interesting to see, okay, because, okay, here what I'm showing are trades done on exchange. Basically, it means on exchanges in that week, there were actually 600 transactions that were done for, I don't know, small delivery zones, or that were done with this kind of, different delivery profile, in the sense that they were like maybe a daily contract or a specific quarterly contract for, I don't know, year 2026 already, that have to be merged. And this is basically how to interpret information. There are so many, these are information that cannot be grouped in any other way. For some markets, like, I don't know, for trading electricity on exchange, the number of lines like this would be little. But for example, on bilateral data sets, where the trading is a bit all over the place, you can expect a bit more of such lines. And yeah, now the last complex slide for the trading insight, and it's I would say it's the most complex one, so bear with me. Also, I would say maybe even accept it as, okay, it's a bit of an intro. Then when you go home, or when you come to work tomorrow and you use the data set itself, maybe please try to remember this. It's not the idea that you understand everything immediately now. So here on this example, it is the idea how to not use one line of information only, or not to compare 2 lines, but how am I looking at the entire market as a whole? What can be summed up and what not, or what can be said by a market? So imagine here that these 8 lines are the entire market for, I don't know, for electricity. Yes, they don't represent the market, so please, it's not a representative sample, but it fits the purpose. of this webinar. So basically, what one could easily ask ourselves, like, oh, how many transactions do we make, altogether? How many transactions are they? And one can easily say, okay, I'm summing up the transactions. As I told you, it's not so good to just go by if you sum up everything, you will have to be aware these are buy plus sell sides. So it makes a bit better sense that you are already aware this when summing up and saying, okay, first I'm focusing on a buy side transactions, then I'm focusing on the sell side transactions. And based on this, one can say, okay, in this data sample, we have 941 buy transactions and 1,603 sell transactions. But then what can we say about market participants? The simple solution would be, okay, how many market participants are actively trading this, And an intuitive approach would be, oh, let's just sum them up, And I'm summing them up and I get, okay, 261. And of course, yeah, that wouldn't be, again, so wrong, but it would be an overestimation. Why? Because, for example, in this first line, we have 36 market participants trading Italian contract. In the second line, we have 109 market participants trading these kind of contracts that are flagged as EU contracts. Then in the third line, we have these 9. But some of them may be the same. Maybe these 36 that are trading Italian, all of them are trading this EU as well. So it's difficult. You cannot, and as an end user, you cannot say this. So the best estimate that you can say is, okay, actually, we have at least 109 different market participants. Why 109? Because this is the biggest number that I see for market participants, that it means different market participants. So we have at least 109, but we have less than 261. So it gives you a range in which you are in a way, a good range of an estimate for how many market participants you can active. I mean, altogether, I think you also have to put into consideration. I think this information can be actually then nicely combined with market participants categorization, which basically tells you that altogether we have around 2,000 market participants that are active each month. So, maybe like this, comparing both data sets, combining them, you can actually then improve your understanding of data. So now I go to the next slide, which is market participant categorization. Yeah, here we actually did something similar as for the contracts, but basically we said, okay, what defines the market participants? How is the easiest to profile them? Of course, on one hand, at least often when we talk with experts or we talk with researchers, of course, the easiest way is to say, oh, but I want them to group by function, are they the producer? I mean, are they a power plant? Are they a TSO? But, this information are not actually available in REMIT. So it's not something that we can build on. I mean, it's maybe something that in the future would be nice if we have opportunities, but these are not REMIT information. Then another thing would be, oh, but can you at least tell us whether they are big market participants or small market participants? Again, this is not something that we can do because we don't have a revenue. Also, okay, it would be a bit of a dilemma how to even define the size of the market participants. But here, what we can do, we can say, okay, how are these market participants doing most of their trading? Are they, mostly active on intraday? Are they mostly active on day ahead, or they are actually just trading long term? Are then they more active on bilateral markets, just making 2 or 3 trades every once in a while, or are they actually super active on exchanges? So what's their approach on when they decided they make a trade? Which kind of decisions they make? Also, are they, here then areas, so delivery pointer zones? Are they deciding to trade more locally? If I would be, ACER is located in Slovenia, so would I be making trades in Slovenia, a bit of Italy, or do we really go across all Europe? And then also commodity, do I basically stick to my bread and butter, really just one commodity, or am I actually an active trader trying to find an opportunity and trading whichever commodity comes my way? And then we also tried to split them by, okay, do we have are they doing a lot of trading or just 1 or 2 trades here and there? So this is how we kind of try to profile them. Now, how does this end up in a line? Again, let's start with a basic example. So this is just a simple one line again. And what can you say from this one line is, okay, I'm looking at trading done in month of January, so in January 2025. Okay, I'm looking at trades done with electricity product. Okay, so this is our kind of area, electricity traded in 2025. Okay, who traded it? We can see, okay, we have 50 market participants. And how are these 50 market participants trading? They didn't trade only electricity. They actually chose to also trade gas or LNG. So basically they were trading in several commodities. And then they traded in 1 to 9 delivery point or zones. So basically, I mean, let's say a bit smaller geographical scope. They traded on up to 10 organized marketplaces. Organized marketplace is both exchange or gas or a broker. So just for everyone who is outside the REMIT world. Then they mostly do their trading on exchanges, and they mostly focused on day-ahead markets. And when it comes to how many trades they did, transactions they did in a year, in that month, we see that they did up to 250 transactions. So what does this tell us? Again, it tells us we have 50 market participants who in January 25 entered the electricity market in such a way that they focus predominantly on trading on exchanges and on day-ahead markets. On an average, they did around, I would say, 10 transactions per day. So 250 per month, 10 transactions per day. Now, how do you compare this with other other lines? It's on the next slide. So here I have the same 50 is here seen in this line too. But how does this now compare to others? So first I have to zoom in into my market and to my month. So I'm saying, okay, I'm looking at January and electricity market. And now let's imagine that this market, these four lines represent the entire electricity market. Yeah, I know the sample is not representative, but again, it's good enough for the purpose of this webinar. And what can I say then about this electricity market? Oh, I can easily say, altogether I had 66 plus 50 plus 9 plus 7 MPs that were trading electricity in January 2025. And what I can easily say based on these four lines, a lot of MPs, actually the majority, vast majority, 116, are not doing many trades per month. Basically, they are doing around 10 trades per day, ending up in 250 trades per month. And then on the other hand, here you can really see a bit of unbalanced REMIT reporting. I mean, not only reporting, also trading in a way. On the other side, you have 16, so 9 plus 7, who are actually doing a lot of trading, more than 999 transactions. I would say tell you, me knowing REMIT information, or also if you would read REMIT quarterly, you would probably know that there are some of them who report not only more than 999, but more than 1 million of transactions. But basically, this already tells you 116 don't make so many trades, and then you have like 16 of them that make a lot of trades. And then you can also tell, okay, for this, 116, you can see what's the difference between this first 66 and the next 50. It's actually just that the 66 are really focusing only in electricity, and the 50 are also trading in gas. And those that are trading in gas are also more focusing on day ahead and not so much on the intraday markets. So you can make these kind of conclusions. Now, once again, I think that I haven't stressed it yet, but now what the next slide is important about, and this is the last example that we have, is why is this important? It's because, when you will look at this market participants data, keep in mind that you have to look at them within a month and within a commodity. So you cannot just, look at the entire 3 months in the same, or you don't look at electricity and gas at the same time. Why is this important? Because the same market participant can, again, if they are trading electricity, they will show up in, and they are the ones that are trading in several commodities. They will for sure show up in the gas numbers as well. So saying this, meaning that, here, let's say the 4th and 5th line, there could be some overlap, for example. So whenever you please look at the market participants data, focus on a month and focus on the commodity. And yeah, this is all from my side. I mean, we have one more slide, which is more like a general one on how to which information you keep in mind, but I think this is kind of regular information. So please keep in mind that number of transactions, yes, it's indication of liquidity, but it's not the same as traded quantity. And as mentioned by Manuel, data are minimally modified on top of what is reported. So there may be data quality issue, even if you're trying the best, there are none, they may show up. And yeah, that's it from ETSA. Thank you, Karina.
Thank you very, very much, Jiva, for these presentations, all the examples. I think I was not exaggerating when I said this would be one of our nerdier webinars. But this just goes to show that the data we have here is inherently complex. The underlying data is complex. So deriving data sets from it is actually something where a lot of brain power will have to go into it. So let's move on to the Q&As. I will regain hopefully control of the presentation. You have been posting already while we were speaking, so I'm happy to relay some of these questions. One, a little bit sort of outlook maybe to the future. So how many tables do we currently have? I think I can answer that. I think it's 9, right? Yes, I got it right. And I mean, it's difficult to say now because we're developing all the time, but any sort of estimate potentially, could it be like thousands? I would assume no. I don't know if you have some indication, give us what you're thinking, let's say from the data side at least, what path this could develop into.
Understand with question. So what we will develop next?
Yeah, I think a little bit, or in terms of, you know, tables, would we add one more table maybe at the next development stage, or sort of a little bit what the maybe more immediate steps, let's say.
Okay, we are looking into 2 directions for the time being. So one would be to bring in some additional information from orders. But most likely we will also explore like adding first volumes and then price. I mean, I don't want to overpromise like when it comes to the time, but also on our side, we are eager to look into this.
Yeah, I mean, this in a way brings us to related questions. I think from what I've seen in the chat or stream, those were raised a couple of times. Where is the price data? Did I miss it? I think there's just no, you didn't miss it. It is not there. So yeah, but I take it from what you said. We are planning that potentially at some stage price data will be published, right?
Yes, indeed, it will. I mean, how to say, don't expect it in the next quarter. I can say so much as this, or because prices are the most critical in a way. We cannot reveal them too much. You know, we need to really make sure that we don't breach any sensitivity kind of challenges there. But yeah, it's definitely in our how to say map.
I think it's important to mention that it's beta version, no? So we went live with beta version to see how it goes and with these 9 datasets, but then they will be developed in different dimensions, data in each dataset, so new columns, measures, and so on, but also new datasets, as it could be order, for example. So yeah, in all these lines we plan to develop.
Yeah, so that was also a question actually, whether it would be transaction or order data. So currently, right, it's transactions data, and then this would also be one of the possible expansions, let's say, of the reference center. I think there are many different ways to expand, right? So it is also a matter of prioritization, of course. Let me see on my list. Yeah, the other one. Sure, I understood it correctly, but it's along the lines, are we separating futures and forwards for the reference center? Or maybe it's a question also about the definition.
I mean, we use the label F, which has them both combined, so future and forwards, but in reality, they can easily be solved by the way of trading field. So what does this mean? So if the F type of contract is traded on broker, we are usually talking about forwards. If the F type of contract is traded on broker and cleared on exchange, this means that it's actually a future type of contract. And then if it's a trade done on an exchange or transaction done on an exchange, this means that it's a future type of contracts. Sorry. And for the, I also saw a question, what does it mean on order book? This means only that on an exchanges, you can have transactions that were done on broker and brought for clearing to an exchange, or the transaction can happen as a result of a trading on the exchange own order book. I don't know if this was clear, but yeah, hope it helps.
Mm-hmm. And I think possibly related, or maybe that was already also answered with your future and forward question, but there was one question, if it is a forward contract, why do we have the market segment data too? I don't know if you can...
Yeah, it's not a big challenge to reply. This was maybe most useful for other markets, like when you have intraday or day ahead trading, or in the bilateral markets. It's true, one could question the usability. Maybe in the future, if we see that it's not really needed, we will remove it. For the time being, our perception was like that it makes sense. But yeah, the experience will show.
Actually, this must come from harmonization between datasets. And probably, since we don't know if this is the final content of the dataset, there might be new things included. So some columns are there that right now, might not be totally usable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think those were the sort of more, technical and reference center content related questions. I also see, yes, there is a question maybe also directly just coming in, why we have published this on ACER chest application instead of the NSOE transparency platform. Maybe from ACER perspective, why we're using chest.
We decided to go for chest because it was an existing application. So in regulation, this time we had a strict deadline, so we had to use something that we were able to deliver on time. So chest was there. We implemented some minor upgrades to the platform to be able to host these datasets and download them, display them, because there are thousands of lines in some of them. So yeah, it's chest right now. As I was saying, it's a beta version, and that applies to all the scope of the project, from content and datasets to IT. So for now it's chest. It might still be chest in the future, or maybe not. But that's beta version would be the answer.
Indeed, yeah. There was one suggestion, I think more than a question, or maybe we can, if that is something we've thought about, if it would be sort of minimum, maximum price or price range as something for the price side of the information that we would possibly start with, or I don't know if you've thought along those lines yet. In terms of what kind of price information to publish, could be minimum, maximum price, or price ranges. That was one of the suggestions.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what we will explore in the coming releases.
Yeah.
It's a good suggestion. So thank you for it.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much. And I think in terms of the reference center as such, I would say those were the most specific. We also covered the orders versus transactions. I do see, and please don't feel like I ignore you, there were some policy questions, some of them quite broad, but I think if you've seen the sort of spirit of the presentation and the experts we have here, they know the data sets inside out, let's say. Yeah, those broader policy questions I would readdress to our other stakeholder engagement fora. So I would ask for your understanding on this. Please don't feel ignored. And in the meantime, while we were presenting the reference center, I think one or two more questions came in for the inside information access point, in particular here on topic. I don't want to ignore the same more critical question, say, well, why is this needed if it's exposed? And also maybe one here Outlook question, well, will this ever be fully integrated? You know, so maybe Daisy, we can go back to you and you can address maybe those two, as they were also very specific to the access point.
Definitely, and I think it's very important to clarify why the access point is working the way it is. It's important to remember that we are working on the basis of a regulation. And in terms of the access point not being real time, so basically that you cannot see messages that are published now immediately. First, I would like to say it's not technically feasible to ensure that the messages can go to the access point immediately. As I explained earlier, ACER collects the messages by a polling mechanism from a set of web feeds, and we extract the data 8 times per day. So if you want to market the access point as a real-time publication, actually would impede transparency on the market. Therefore, we still think the way we have approached the design of the access point is still better for the contribution to the transparency on the market. This has also been discussed with our expert groups and our various stakeholder forums. So this is not a lightly taken consideration. The other point I wanted to make is that inside information platforms, they have a vital role in the publication of messages and in the reporting to ACER. And REMIT itself maintains this role after the revision of the legislation last year. And there was another question that maybe I can address, whether there will be any change to how the inside information would be reported by the current platforms. So, as I said in my presentation, there is a change foreseen in how the platforms send the data to ACER, and there are further legislative changes that may change the content and the details of reportable inside information. So this is something to look into once these legislations are updated. That's it.
Thank you very much, Daisy, too. I just wanted to give an opportunity to come back to this, because we had at the beginning some questions coming in. And seeing as we still have a little bit of time, I noticed I overlooked one question on the reference center in terms of the aggregation variables. So if there are less than 5 transactions to go from EU to high granularity, Germany, months, etc. But if I'm not wrong, this is the aggregation level is also determined by anonymization efforts, etc. Right? So where we have fewer transactions in a bundle.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we tried to define the contract in such a way that we keep as much as possible the information. Of course, you know, if you would remove completely one field, like, I don't know, delivery point or zone, yes, maybe we would, you know, have less aggregated columns, but like this we would also, you know, give you less information. So we try to balance there. But the moment when we stumbled upon like a in this market there is less than 5 transactions or less than 5 market participants trading, we decided, okay, we simplify the contract. That contract, then we simply label it as EU all deliveries, all deliverable times contract in a way.
And one more topic maybe that could be grouped on the reference center is sort of, is it real time? I think the answer is no, it is not. Also the question is, can I find my single transaction there? The answer is also no, for the reasons just explained. But maybe, yeah, on the sort of, let's say, time delay or the publication schedule, let's say, don't know, maybe Manu or Riva, just a few words on.
Yeah, I would just mention that data sets need to be produced, and also that the data collected by ACER, we need to leave some, I mean, what we are offering, these 3 months of data, is data reported until this deadline, right? So there needs to be some time so we capture all the data, all the transactions that happen on this period of time. Because some data are reported on T+1 basis, other T+30. So to capture all the events in the period, we need, I mean, to capture the complete set, we need to leave this time pass. And also remember, we are undergoing data quality checks. So this also takes some time to put this data into good quality and standardize and harmonize it for the data sets. Then it would be impossible to do it real time.
Okay, thank you for clarifying this, because I think this is a question that comes up. Why is it this delay, or can't it be published tomorrow? So there are reasons for this. Given the time, I would say we move on to the concluding remarks. I think we tried to cover as many questions as we could, but as I said, we are more than happy to follow up on this if I overlooked in the stream of questions the one or the other topic. I apologize, but I do hope we have covered your most pressing questions with regard to the access point and the reference center. As a sort of outlook, I think we already talked a little bit about possible future developments. Where could this go? As we said at the beginning, I mean, we're in beta version currently, and we are planning continuous improvements. Some options we already discussed, new data sets, other update schedules, and of course, we don't just publish, let's say, data for the sake of publishing data. Data should be used. So also your comments today, your questions, the questions you've asked will be beneficial for us, because data usage will also shape, let's say, at the end of the day, the future development of these deliverables. So already what has been indicated, let's say, or where is the price data, you know, could it be closer to real time, etc. Those are this very valuable information for us, and we also have other fora, of course, where we explore users' feedback, and this for sure we will take into account when continuing to develop the Inside Information Access Point and the REMIT Data Reference Center. The only thing that is left for me to do is to thank all my colleagues here. You've seen a few of them present today, but to bring these projects and deliverables about, it takes, let's say, the whole data stream from defining data to the reporting to all the data quality assurance. So many thanks to them, also from the comms team hosting this webinar with us. And as I said, again, everybody here who is engaging with us, is asking questions, who's downloading, is giving us feedback. This is much appreciated. And there's not much left for me to say other than wish you a good remainder of the afternoon. And especially, I may say, on a day like today, take care.